Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are delighted to be speaking to the brilliant cast and creatives responsible for the Searchlight film, Empire of Light. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the AAFCA members on the call today, starting with our facilitator, Katia Woods in Philadelphia, Dana Abercrombie in New York, Samuel Leggett in Washington, D.C., Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta, Ruben Rigaud in Miami, Florida, and Nancy Green in Baltimore, Maryland. I am going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I'll see you on the other side.
Look around you. This whole place is for people who want to escape, people who don't belong anywhere else. How do you feel?
I do feel a bit numb, I suppose.
The world is changing.
Wow.
You can't reverse it.
Another world.
Happy New Year!
You can't just give up.
Go back to something.
Don't let them tell you what you can or can't do. All these people. I'm the only one who knows the truth. Do you understand me? I'm the only one!
Hillary, please open the door.
Here's to the future.
Walking those old scenes.
Here's to getting back up. And here's to coming home.
Hey, I'm Samuel Leggett from JVS Media and Productions. Thank you guys for coming. As a lover of cinema, I just appreciated what you did with this. Like you, Sam, the way you directed it, but as a whole, you guys brought something of essence very important here. But Sam, the way that you wrote this, you tackled two distinct things that are still apparent right now, today's time, which is mental awareness and health and racial discrimination. And so the questions go to actually Olivia and Michael. I wanted to check with you guys, how did you guys deal with handling your characters individually, just from the racial discrimination side, and then from the mental awareness of what she's dealing with, and then together they're having to also deal with it, as a whole. Like they're having to complement each other, but also get outside their comfort zone while dealing with their same. So I was curious y'all's approach with both your characters, for Stephen and for Olivia, your character.
For me, I think I had an easier time of it because I had Sam, who had, forgive me, talking about you like you're not here, but Sam, who'd spent his childhood watching like a hawk every change in eye makeup, every change in behavior. So I had the perfect person to, and when I could say, coming off lithium, what's that like? When did this happen? How did you know that something was coming? Or what was, I had the best helper in that to explain to me because he'd seen it all through his life. So for me, I had him holding my hands through it. And because I, thankfully haven't had to deal with any mental health issues myself. So it was easier for me. And I can see how what you had to go through, obviously, was a different experience.
Yeah. For me, reacting to the mental health stuff was really interesting because I haven't really been around someone like that before. So I learned a lot within that process about that topic. And also, as well, Sam had this research script where if you was reading something, you could click on it and it would take you to a lot of the research that he'd done and stuff that we could help us know more. And that's where I got a lot of the physical kind of research stuff from. But in terms of the racial aspect of it, I feel like, I haven't really experienced it like that, but my acting coach, Gary Nurse, who I've done a lot of work with for this character, he was, around the same age as Stephen within this time frame, like in the 80s. So he was kind of like someone that would have experienced a lot of this. So for authenticity and stuff like that, I'd ask him a lot of questions and, you know, how he would react to a situation like this and understanding how I would react to it in this time and kind of merging those ideas and feelings together, which was really important for me.
You guys did phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Green with Film Critique. And I just wanted to say, yes, I absolutely really enjoyed this movie. I love the dynamics between everyone. And my question is for Sam. I wanted to know, sort of blending the two different issues that they're dealing with. On one side, she's dealing with the oppression of everyone thinking that she's crazy because of men and the things that they were doing to her, and he's having to deal with racism. What was your intent behind that to say in terms of how those two fields sort of can merge and the experiences of people can bring them together?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to, I just said actually this a minute ago, but there's an inner crisis and an outer crisis. She's going through something, like inner turmoil, and that inner turmoil is reflected, which is obviously bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever you want to call it, and that's mirrored by an outer crisis, and the outer crisis is the Thatcher years, you know, huge unemployment, terrible racial policies. And those two things run concurrently, and they kind of break in on each other in the riot. The outer world literally smashes the glass and comes in a way that is saying you can't keep it at bay. You can't pretend it's not there. It's gonna come and get you. But the irony about those years, those years in the early 80s, that when I was a teenager, which when I was the same age as Stephen really, was that even though it was a time of great political upheaval and racial upheaval, it was also a time when we had these role models, these bands that were genuinely diverse and that were making music about social issues that went straight to #1 in the charts. I mean, it was an incredible time of creativity. So you had the Specials, the Selector, the Beat, truly multiracial bands, working class, making amazing music. And then at the same time, you had in the movies, which again you see reflected in our movie, a time when for the first time there were commercial movie stars, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, you know, who were breaking through. So there were these role models for young black men like Stephen. So for me, it had a bit of both really. But I wanted to try and tell both those stories at the same time. It's not to say that there isn't more than enough to make a movie about just mental illness, and there's more than enough to make a movie just, you know, being a young black man in the early 80s. But I felt the two things somehow fitted together and spoke to me, and I tried to tell both stories.
Nice, and it was done very well, beautifully done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name is Ruben Peralta from cocalecas.net. This movie really touched me in a really deep sense, because when I was a kid in the Dominican Republic, my best friend was going to the movies. He was going to the movies. I have this experience of going to the movies, getting dressed, sitting in a dark room and watching a movie. How do you guys feel now that we have streaming and this movie was made to watch in a theater? And I feel that this love letter to the movie is to take people to the movies, to have this action of going to the films instead of staying home and watch a movie and like we're doing now. How do you guys feel? My question for Sam and Olivia.
Well, I know that we probably feel the same. Sam will put it more eloquently than me, no doubt. But I love going to the cinema. I love sitting in a room that is nothing like my home, that is 10 times the size of any room we could ever have, with people I don't know, and having a shared experience. I feel that about the theatre too, but cinema can go to places the theatre can't. You know, you can't have an explosion on stage. Well, you can, but it's never as good. And just that shared, you know, if it's emotional, you know that all these human beings, wherever they're from, are feeling the same stuff. It is an extraordinary experience, and it's something I don't go as often as I I used to go, because we do have the opportunity to watch films at home. And but when I go, I'm really pleased I've been, and it's something that can't be touched. It can't be recreated in your sitting room. It's just not big enough and or loud enough. And to feel that bass in your stomach when the music's playing, it's a breathtaking and beautiful experience that I feel sad that maybe my kids won't experience as much as I did, but I want to force them to.
Yeah, I can't put it much better than that. I mean, I do think that we create it. I mean, it's in a miracle in a way that, when I was researching this movie, and I was originally going to set it in a slightly larger South Coast English town called Brighton, and I researched how many cinemas there were in Brighton after the war, and it's a small town, and there were 46 cinemas in Brighton.
Wow,
and then even in 1980, there were 14, right? I mean, it had gone down, but there were still 14 cinemas in quite a small town. Wow. And now there are 4, right? And so obviously you just think it's been on the wane since the advent of television. So this is no different. But I do think that what we have now, we are preserving that experience. And I think that what's happened to cinemas, which is that the advent of things like Dolby Sound and Dolby Atmos, I mean, and surround sound and comfort and food and ease and community, those things we were deprived of during the pandemic. I think we're going to want even more. So I am an optimist about it. I feel like that experience is going to be preserved, and it's really just about getting out there and sending the message. The issue is about keeping the variety of movies available to you in the cinema, so it's not entirely dominated by giant franchises. And that is the thing that I think we're all fighting for, that we can make a non-franchise event movie like 1917. We can make a movie like this, and they're seen in the cinema. So it's up to the filmmakers to just be up for the challenge of making movies that use all the tools of the cinema to make it exciting, to get you in, and that's why, let's face it, that's why we're here. That's why I'm talking to you. It's why we're all talking to each other. We want people to go to the fucking cinema. That's just like, and whether it's to see this or something else, I honestly don't care. I obviously want people to see this movie, but the experience of it is something I really believe in, and it's in the movie. Stephen says, go and sit in the dark where they can't see your face. They don't even know you're there, right? That little beam of light is escape. And I think it is for a lot of people. And I think we have to try and remember that we can escape in a different way when we're not in our front rooms. And it's it's exciting.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katya Woods with Cup of Social in the Philadelphia Tribune. One of the themes about this, I feel like everybody that works in this movie house is some type of misfit, and they have found community amongst each other, no matter, it's kind of like no matter what's going on in their lives, this theater, everything that represents each other is like a bonus family to help cope with those things. Toby, can you talk a little bit about that? Because your character reveals something, I don't want to spoil it, intimate about himself, and Olivia's character is like, what? Like, how have we been working together for so long? And it's like, because I felt like he felt that we know so much about what Olivia is going through, that he's like, I wanted her to know that she's not the only one. My burden is not mental, but I do have one too. So can you speak on that a little bit, Toby?
Yeah, I think it is mental on one level. I think that he has he's sort of his strategy he's had a trauma in his life, and the way he's dealt with the trauma is to bury himself in a dark box in a cinema, and to see life through a tiny window, and to look at the world through a tiny window, and to basically take all color out of himself, his clothes, his face. He lives in the dark. And I think that that's not terribly successful as a strategy. I think that, it's a kind of ticking bomb. And oddly, when Stephen comes, he's a bit he's unlocked by that, because the son that we discover, and we realize we've seen a picture of that son in amongst the movie stars, we've seen there's this one image selected. I think he realizes, oh, my son's, to a certain extent, my son has found me, another son has found me. And he has projected that relationship unwittingly onto this newcomer. And it's a beautiful thing in the script that there is a kind of ghost story going on in the cinema with this character, you know, because those guys were like ghosts, the projectionists. They tended to be guys, and they were like ghosts in the machine of the cinema. And I think that's sort of something of what I feel about it. And I think it's a sort of shadow story to the main story in a way.
Dana Abercrombie, The Coalition. My question is for Sam Mendes and Olivia Colman. What I love about Hillary is there's different emotional beats to her character, and especially how she interacts with others. Can you talk about, from an actress standpoint and also from the writer standpoint with Sam, of finding those beats and how she will react in those different states that she is in?
But for me, I grew up watching the cycle of mental illness. You know, the cycle for me watching my mother was that she would be medicated and feel numb. This is certainly what Hillary's journey is. Feel like she somehow wasn't fully in the world. During that time, she would often be taken advantage of by men, or she would form a bit of a crush, and it would bottle up. Then perhaps something would trigger coming off the lithium, coming off the drugs, and she would go through a period of great freedom and joy and exhilaration, like she was high, just really high. And then something would go wrong in that period. It would lead to loss of sleep, and gradually she would start to lose control and descend into the darkness. And that was when it got really serious. And then, you know, one of the things I really wanted to do in the movie was to dramatize the denial you go through when you suffer from mental illness, rather than explain it. You know, I think mental illness remains stigmatized, not talked about properly. It's very difficult to talk about. You know, if you went into hospital with a tumor and came out, I would say, how are you, right? If you go into a mental hospital and you come out having been medicated, I wouldn't say anything, probably. It's still a cloak of awkwardness and not knowing how to talk about it. It's partly because it's a behavioral issue. And for me, the thing I wanted most to dramatize was the fact that you can know you need help and yet fight with every fiber of your being to not be taken into a mental hospital. So the scene I'm talking about is that she is fighting, she will not let them in, and yet she has packed her bag. And to me, that's what the show don't tell theory of, you know, that's what I wanted to dramatize. I wanted you to be able to understand that both of those things can be believed absolutely and not contradict each other, right? So that for me was the hub of the whole Hillary journey. And then after that, coming out, having been medicated again, feeling humiliated, remembering everything you went through, feeling shame, and trying to put your life back together again. That was the cycle. And my job with Olivia was to make sure that every notch in that journey was hit, and that we knew exactly where we were in that cycle and how those little moments manifested themselves, whether it was more eye makeup, no washing of the hair, different clothes, you know, but, you know, or absolute certainty. I mean, one of my favorite moments is the moment that Stephen tries to help her and says, you know, tries to say, it's an illness, it's not your fault. And she just laughs in his face. But she's gone past that point where she can have a coherent conversation with anyone about it. It's too far gone. So those things were all from my own memory, and I tried to communicate them to Olivia as best I could, so she could give that journey life. What I felt was she did it so well, and at times I found it almost impossible to watch, you know, because it actually triggered memories in me of that experience when I was little, of watching someone fall apart. And I think particularly in that apartment scene when she gets taken away, I found that really it was cathartic on one level. On another level, I wanted to run away. Anyway, that's a very long answer, but
I mean, from my point of view, Sam made my job so easy that, as I think I said earlier, but every moment I could ask him, and he was so clear and made himself so vulnerable, was very honest about everything he'd seen, and he makes a very safe environment, so you feel trusted and looked after, and you can absolutely let rip, and he will help you every step of the way. So it really did make and I think for all of us, he made the right environment for us all to do what we needed to do.
Hi, Rhonda here.
Hi.
I have a question for Michael because I watch Top Boy and Blue Story. So I want to know what went into your decision to do this film, and what did you hope to achieve in Stephen that could distinguish you from those particular portrayals that a lot of people know you for?
What went into the decision of doing this film was the fact that Sam was obviously doing it, and I really loved the way 1917 was done. So I knew Roger Deakins was doing it as well. That was exciting. And I also knew that Olivia Colman was going to be doing it. So those aspects for me was a perfect package. And then, on top of that, the script for me, when I was reading it, I really connected with it. And I wasn't actually sure why. And I've never really admitted that before, but I could do it now because hearing Toby speak, you do have those feeling of something where you don't actually know what it is that you connect with, but I just did, and then throughout the process, I really just started to understand more the importance of portraying a character like this within a story like this. It's really important for those people that I've portrayed in the stuff that you've seen. You get what I'm trying to say? Because people like Stephen, and seeing people like Stephen on screen, it gives people like the youth something to believe in that's positive. Stephen doesn't do anything negative, or he hasn't got any malice towards anyone or trying to do something to, he just wants to love. And you see that in the moments where a lot of people run away and did run away from the situation, he lent in more, to find out more about Hillary's situation and stuff like that, actually wanting to be there for her, which we don't really get to see a lot, So for me, that was really important. And I think that in terms of finding something in Stephen that was different, it was just I already know how it was gonna look aesthetically, I'm trying to say, being in the 80s and, kind of having a character that speaks a bit different to how we talk. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I've done Lovers Rock already, which was also set in the 80s, but this was just more of a, following a character and actually having a lot more to, sink your teeth into, sort of thing. So yeah, man, I feel like it was just gonna always be different just by the way it looked and the way I spoke and by the stuff that he was interested in, him doing architecture and stuff like that. I don't know any young Black youth that's done architecture, to be honest with you. So to represent someone like that was really important for me. But yeah, it was just good to establish someone that was just different to me in general anyway, but also different to someone like Jamie and someone like Marco and the stuff that I've done before, which was really amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, cast and creatives, for Empire of Light. Again, it's such an amazing movie, and a special shout out to Tanya. You definitely, the way you crafted and the subtleties that you brought into your performance as his mother was memorable.
Very kind of you to say. Thank you.
On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.